Patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. And obviously the Broncos are starting out 0-1, but I think there are certainly some positives to glean from the game. But we will get your thoughts, and obviously we'll be talking about our thoughts about the game against the Seattle Seahawks. We did label it as the fact that it was going to be a very tough task for the Denver Broncos going up against the Seahawks in Seattle. It's gonna be a fun one. So let us know what your guys' thoughts are. And reminder that if you guys are new listening and watching the Manly Broncos podcast, first of all, thank you guys so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button over there on the MHRT network page on YouTube. Follow the Manly Broncos Twitter handle at Manly Broncos. Follow both Brandon and I. On the socials, our handles are right there on your screen. And then obviously like and share the show with your friends, and have your friends tell their friends about the Manly Broncos podcast. But let us know what your guys' thoughts are. We see Big Mike in the chat. He's changing things up a little bit. He's not chiming in on YouTube now. He's actually chiming in on the X Twitter machine. So
welcome.
I'm assuming, like usual, he's having his Big Mike meal from Wingstop. How are you doing, Brandon? I see there's something new about you right now. Are you wearing something new or something?
Oh no, why would you think that? This is what I always wear every single time we record.
Now, why would that be? I mean, it looks completely new.
Yeah, it's a new New Jersey design is why. Let me just model it here.
Ah,
you can't see it because my background. This is a Pat Surtain II, New Jersey. So for anyone who somehow doesn't know, if Cam didn't tell you, Cam and I got to go to the Broncos stadium to watch the game at like a watch party, which was super fun. And they had a team store there. And Cam's neighbor, he's your neighbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who invited us also got like a discount at the team store. And I'm like, I got to take advantage of this. So I picked myself up this bad boy. I wanted to have something that was like a jersey of a player that I will actually be like able to watch, because my only other jerseys were Russell Wilson and Von Miller. So I want to have an actual Broncos player that is actually on the team and doesn't suck. And Pat Surtain is probably going to be on the team, or definitely on the team for at least the next 6 years. So that's what this is.
He was debating between, whether or not he should go white, or whether
I almost looked at getting the white, but the blue is just so solid, man. The blue is sexy.
I got to say it was a fun experience. So I'm getting, this is unfortunately what they do is that this event that they're doing is for people that have season tickets, and so so unfortunately people that don't have season tickets, they can't be a part of this. And so I should say also too, I think anybody that is a season ticket holder has the ability to have discounts at the team store, I think. But yeah, it was a fun event. I believe from everything that we were told, I think it was like an inaugural event. It was super fun. Like you could actually go outside, you could actually sit like, on the seat where they had it, which is basically the seating for the United Club, and watch the game.
You could literally sit in the stadium and watch the game on the side, like Jumbotron.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a lot of fun if they do that going forward. Because like I said, I'm assuming it was an inaugural event. So my guess is, with probably how popular it was, it's going to be one where you'll see a lot of, I think, Bronco fans, express their support over that. The fact that was such a big turnout. It was huge. I was actually shocked how many people were there.
There were a lot of people there. Big Mike, that sounds super bougie and good. I know that's like
So demure.
a brand. So demure. But I haven't had it before, but that sounds good. I'd love some chocolate right now. Yeah, super fun. The game itself, slightly less so. But we'll get into it. But yeah, picked up this jersey, so got a great deal. So shout out to Kenny, I believe. Kenny's his name.
Carrie.
Carrie. I was close. I'm sorry, Carrie. Shout out to Carrie. I couldn't tell if it was an R or an N. But that was awesome and super fun to go. If you guys can go, I recommend, because like I don't know again how many times they're necessarily doing it. I don't know if it's like during the season, like they just will do several of these, or it was because it was like kickoff opening game, but super fun.
Yeah.
And again, you could literally sit in the stadium like you'd be at the game, and obviously the game's not there, but you can watch on the Jumbotron. Maybe they do them for
away games,
like home games too, but definitely for away games. I mean, home games, obviously, they just like sit in the United Club seats, but maybe for every away game they do that. That'd be super cool, but really fun. They had food too, which was pretty good. They had like an Arnold Palmer
station.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I literally want one of those like I would literally want to put one on a golf cart. How sick would that be? Just like drive around your golf cart with an Arnold Palmer station. Well, you would probably crash and spill it everywhere. That would be so much fun. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, the way that you could probably do it is you could probably do it where, because golf carts always have like the ball washer, right? Like onto the side, and, the club cleaner, if you will, like onto the side, like somewhere, on maybe the other side where you have like a cooler or something.
What's up, David?
You could probably do like an Arnold Palmer station or something like that. So I'm sure there's very clever and fancy, like what was those TV shows back in the day, Brandon, like Pimp My Ride?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah. Do like Pimp My Golf Cart. And
I bet you that's a series on YouTube, and I kind of want to watch it now.
And if not, it needs to be a series.
I'm actually checking out.
Thank you so much for watching this, David. So
I don't see it. I mean, there's a lot of golf cart makeovers, which is pretty cool, but
yeah.
Someone make this, please. That sounds so fun.
Yeah. But nonetheless, it was it was super fun. We're not going to sing that song, Josh.
No, that only happens if you say his name 3 times in front of a mirror.
That's right. But no, it was super fun. We're hoping that they can be able to do it again. So I'm definitely excited about it. Obviously, as we said, it was a bit disappointing, on the result. But I think that for me, to summarize it this way, Brandon, I think I said it to you on the show or before that we hit record. Bo Nix was actually not the big disappointment, or like the biggest disappointment of the entire game, right? And that should actually give Bronco fans a cause for optimism, not a cause for concern, and obviously it's week 1 too. So it's kind of, I saw Matt Miller say this on Twitter today. It's like an extension of the preseason to a degree, because it's like you're ironing the kinks out just a little bit, because it's the first week of football. It's the first week of football. And unfortunately for the Broncos' sake, they were in a really tough environment with Seattle.
Yeah. It was interesting too to see, because the Seahawks defense looked, I mean, I don't know how much of this was the Seahawks defense also just looking very good, and Mike McDonald being a defensive guru, like he has kind of the reputation of, like I've read, or how much of this was Bo Nix struggling, or the weapons struggling, or maybe like both, all of the above. Bo Nix struggling, everyone else struggling on offense, and the Seahawks defense is good. That is one thing I'm interested to see, like as it continues throughout the season, and not like I'm going to watch a lot of Seahawks games, but just to kind of note, does the defense continue to look this good? Because like last year, the defense was horrible. They were like 31st in the league in that third down conversion rate. So like they let everyone convert. They were a good run defensive team. I don't know. They just weren't that good of a defense. But Witherspoon looked pretty good. Their rookie from last year. Who's the corner that changed his name? Is it Reek now? Not Tariq, Reek. Woolen kind of was decent. I don't know. But like the defense looked pretty solid. So again, I don't know how much of this was necessarily like the Seahawks defense being just really tough to play against. Lumen Field, obviously, again, we talked about, is a very tough place to go into and play. And even though Cam and I both agree that's kind of overblown, like I do think it's at least somewhat relevant when you're a rookie making your first start. Not that it's going to like completely, like, I'm not saying that's the reason he sucked. It's just because of where he played. Like he could have been better.
But he's not.
He looked like a rookie quarterback. I mean, he looked like a rookie quarterback. All the quarterbacks looked pretty bad.
Not just rookies
this year, and specific rookies, but like everyone. Passing has been continuously going down every single year. I believe this week the NFL broke the record for fewest touchdown passes thrown in week 1. That was set by last year's NFL season. So it just continues to go down and down. It kind of makes me wonder if they're going to try to implement something to help the passing game like they attempted to do with the kickoff return game with the dynamic kickoffs, which we can actually get into a little bit, are not dynamic in my opinion. Like I literally feel like I've seen 3 returns so far.
Funny enough, one of them went for a score.
One of them was for a score. Wasn't that the Cardinals?
He was the Cardinals.
Yeah, but so funny to see that like kind of fizzle out and die. But it is interesting because like everyone looks bad. All the offenses kind of look bad. Obviously, yes, but Knicks look bad. Broncos didn't look good. I mean, Daniel Jones looked disgusting, but that's just kind of Daniel Jones.
But
Caleb Williams really struggled as well. Jaden Daniels was the best rookie quarterback of all of them, in my opinion, but he wasn't amazing. I mean, even Patrick Mahomes was kind of iffy, to be honest with you, like in the first game. So just in general, quarterbacks have not looked good.
Yeah.
And offenses have not looked good. So we'll see. Bo's a rookie. I mean, are there concerns here? Yes, but there's a lot more season left. So we'll see what it looks like at home against the Steelers, who also have a very tough defense, but at least it's at home. And probably not going to be a reunion because Wilson is ducking Denver like Joel Embiid.
But I just think that for the way we were saying it is just like Bo wasn't the reason the Broncos lost this game. Like that's what we're kind of like. He wasn't like the biggest disappointment.
He was a reason. I'm going to say, in my opinion, he was a reason. He wasn't the reason.
But I just think that for anybody that is trying to label this as, Bo really actually played bad. I don't think he actually played as bad as people, like give him, much crap for. I actually think he played better. Is what I'm trying to say.
I think he played better than the initial reactions, but I mean, I do also think he played fairly poorly.
For sure. But I just think that I think that Sean Payton was uber conservative for the first week. But I think that
definitely.
It's something that you and I said, like he was super conservative, but even then Knicks wasn't really helping out. Whenever they would try and go conservative, he would make some really boneheaded decisions and throw into, quadruple coverage, or he would throw into double coverage, or he would make some throws off of his back foot that were just uncharacteristic. You know what I mean? And so it's probably fitting we lead off with the main course there, talking about, Bo Nix. The biggest thing is our question that we're asking in the show is, can it be fixed? Absolutely. I think that's probably the biggest thing in this takeaway is that all of the stuff is fixable except for probably one thing, and it may be a whole season of look into that particular room and find out whether or not it'll be truly fixable or not. And we'll talk about that position here in just a little bit. But I think that he wasn't helping matters, and I also thought that Sean did not call nearly enough designed runs for Bo. Specifically, when you saw him kind of get better as the game was going on, and he was starting to kind of calm his nerves a little bit, and he started to play a little bit better. And then you got a chance to see him use his legs a little bit more. At that moment, I thought that maybe we would see some QB power, some designed runs, some read option, for him, and we didn't get a chance to see that. We didn't get a chance to see that. So I just thought that, it was a bit frustrating, to say the least. And, and I mean, well, what was your take on that? I mean, obviously we briefly mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if fixed is the right, can it be fixed is the right term personally for me, because like, I don't think there's anything that needs to be fixed in the sense I don't know if what's the best way to explain it, but basically, like, I think there's just a lot to evaluate. I think there's things that he can improve upon, but I also think it was literally his first game. And I think Sean Payton called the game like it was Bo's first game. That's what it looked like to me, is like, make this as easy as possible. Just survive the game. Like, could he have been better? Sure. Could he have called a better game? Sure. But I do think he was intentionally trying to call an easy game to make it easier for Bo. Like, it just looked like a guy who was calling a game for rookie quarterback in a tough situation who wasn't doing amazing. And that's just what it seemed like to me. So I think, like, can it be improved, I guess, is a better term for me personally. And I think that's true. I don't know if there's I don't even know if there's anything necessarily to fix. I think there's a lot that can be improved, and I think it will improve. And we'll see how much it can improve week to week when we go back home and play the Steelers. But I mean, this is kind of what like, when you have a rookie quarterback, you kind of need to expect these things, unless you have an alien, like the kind of throws that Anthony Richardson can make.
Mm-hmm.
Then, like, you're going to, I mean, even then you're obviously going to have the difficult games and the difficult passes. I mean, like, Josh Allen springs to mind, but like, this is kind of what, like, can be expected from a rookie. Was it great? No. Can it be better? Yes. Like, that's my opinion.
And so then the reason why, I just think it's going to be fixable is I just think that, from my vantage point, is just that there were moments where instead of a three strap drop and then, and then get the ball out, he probably took a little bit more, and then he probably got a little bit antsy and then got the ball out, at times. And I think also so much too that I think there were also moments where he probably could have stood a little bit more tall in the pocket versus kind of throwing off the back foot. And I mean, and those are habit things that, if it's a really good throw, it's a good throw. And I think so I think that part is fixable. Where I lead it into the part where I said to the area where I felt like this may not be fixable and that it actually may be a glaring problem as the season wears on. The biggest thing in terms of, how I say that Bo is not really the biggest problem of this game, I actually thought the wide receiver room specifically was maybe the biggest disappointment in this game. I thought that the Broncos not having a clear wide receiver one was the biggest takeaway for me. Cortland Sutton was a huge problem with drops. Josh Reynolds was a problem with drops. And there just never was a moment where a player, as crazy as it sounds, do I think that long-term they will maybe miss these particular two guys? No.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in the grand scheme of things, of having a dominant wide receiver one who is a big yards after catch, run after catch type wide receiver, you really needed that in this game. And specifically, they really missed Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy. I said what I said. Like, they really could have used those types of players, especially a guy like maybe even a Jerry Jeudy, where you could use him a little bit in space. That wasn't really the case. in this game. And I think a lot of it too is I think you do have to tip your cap over to the Seattle defense, because they made it a little bit more difficult than it needed to be in that area. Because the moment that Cortland Sutton would catch a pass, or Josh Reynolds would catch a pass, or even McLaughlin out of the backfield, the moment that they would catch the ball out of the backfield, or they would catch the ball from Bo, a Seattle player was instantly in their face, and they couldn't get any sort of yards after catch on them.
To me, that's more on the defense. Again, the defense for Seattle being surprisingly good. So I don't know if it was even that they weren't getting separation. I think it was just like Seattle was closing and hitting well. But I agree, like the wide receivers did not help by any means. I do think Cortland had definitely one drop. There was that one pass that on the broadcast looked like it was very behind.
Yeah, they said it was egregious.
They said it was like a miss. I mean, it was a little behind, but it was very catchable, and I think it was something Cortland could have caught.
They made it for sure. Made it sound way worse than it was.
Yeah, I mean, it looked better on a recap from All 22 than it looked on the broadcast view when it happened, because you couldn't really see it. And also they made it sound very bad. I mean, it was still, he could have thrown a better ball, but it also could have been catched. So like,
literally
it's not like, I'm not, if anything, I'm putting it more on Cortland Sutton than I am on Bo. Do I think Bo could have thrown a better ball? Yes. But like, if he leads him slightly better, but like, it really wasn't that bad of a throw. But Devon Vele was the biggest standout to me, at least. Like, as a rookie, he looks really good. He's consistent. Mm-hmm. He's literally Tim Patrick 2.0, in my opinion. Like, that's just kind of what he's turning into already, is Mr. Dependable. You can go to him. He's pretty much always going to catch the ball. He had 8 receptions. Didn't really do much with them in terms of like yardage or anything, but he was a good outlet for Bo, and like having someone that he can build that like additional chemistry with, I think is a good thing, for sure. So that was, at least to me, the bright spot in the wide receiver core.
Yeah.
So we found another one. There's another undrafted wide receiver that just shows up and shows out. And this year it's Devon Vele.
Or I was just gonna say, like, Sean Payton maybe found his Marcus Colston. I know we were, joking about, maybe not much joking, but making that point that, he kind of found a Marcus Colston. Well, that might have been the case with Devon Vele. And I think that, for a room specifically that doesn't have a clear wide receiver one, and even though it should be Cortland Sutton based on the veteran leadership and the presence he has in the locker room, like, even though they don't really have a room player in that room like that, Vele could be one of those players that takes the bull by the horns and becomes as crazy as that sounds, right? Specifically as a rookie, but like, as crazy as that sounds, like, he could, in essence, be that type of player where he's a wide receiver one at the very end of the season because of the lack of it. You know what I mean? So I just think that, like, it's specifically something that'll be worth monitoring, because especially too with a rookie, right? And given with probably where things were with training camp, Bo spent probably a majority of his time even getting a lot of reps with Vele. So it seems pretty appropriate that Vele and Bo would have like that instant connection basically from day one. So and he's made the most out of it. Vele's really made the most out of it. And then I think that the other part that I thought was really disappointing, and this is also where it goes to with Sean Payton and with Bo Nix not being used in the running game as much, but I was really shocked, that I was really shocked to see them not commit to the running game itself. You know what I mean? Like,
well, having a rookie quarterback throw 42 times, probably not a great.
Well, and I just think that
plan.
it's not a great plan at all.
We are sad.
Every time the Broncos lose, we're sad. I'm sad.
Yeah, we're talking about the lows right now.
Yeah.
So we're gonna dice, but yeah, I mean, not a great game plan to have your rookie quarterback throw 42 times, like I just said. I do think like they tried to commit to the run. I just don't think it was getting anywhere. And I don't know if it was again Seattle's defense. I don't know if it was the offensive line missing blocks. I got to go back and look at that. Javonte did not look like old Javonte. Sadly, we'll see.
I disagree. I actually thought he looked fine.
I think he looked okay, but he wasn't bowling over guys and getting he had 8 carries, 23 yards.
But he was the better back of the bunch, but they just stopped they just for some reason they just didn't use.
They did weirdly go to Jaleel for like the majority of the second half, which was weird. Like I do think they could have tried more with Javonte, but I do think like it just wasn't going. It wasn't getting there.
Yeah.
And at least to me, like, not that I say he looked bad, but I do think there's maybe going to be a little bit of a curve to like get him back on track. In terms of like, again, he hasn't played in a while. So he might be a little rusty, I guess is maybe a better way to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's out or bad by any means. I just think he didn't look great, but I also think like they could have given him the ball more, and it might have been a number of things. It might not have been him. It might have also been the offensive line. It might have been the defense crashing down, especially when they knew like weren't really letting anything happen in the passing game. So they're like, well, let's just also like not let them run. So it was very poor running game as well. So
and I just think that for me too, like I think that he was the better running back of it, and like just the theory of the way that I'm looking into it, it's like the moment he slipped, right, which was basically right after the Alex Singleton interception, right, like right after that interception, and he had that slip, which he would have gotten the first down. It's like after that, they just stopped handing him the football. Or it was just sporadic, like it was here and there, like when they would give him the football, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know. I was clearly shocked. And I think that also too, the injury for Roderick Estime, it's a learning game. It's going to be a learning experience for him. Obviously, his burst that we saw there on that run was something we really didn't get a chance to see much of in the preseason. So that particular run was really nice to see. The unfortunate thing was it might actually look as if he hurt his ankle on that. And because of that, he's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. But I also think too, this could be a blessing in disguise. And the reason why I say that is because, this is going to afford them the opportunity to maybe see Blake Watson a little bit more, and the versatility of Blake Watson with the wide receiver room and the running back position. And I think that, if I'm really going to be honest on looking at the running back position, Brandon, Javonte might have been disappointing, but he wasn't the most disappointing back on Sunday. That was Jaleel McLaughlin for me. Jaleel was probably the most disappointing running back on Sunday because of the fact that it looked like they had him in space or trying to get him in space. And he could just never break free. Maybe that was some of the Seattle defense. Kudos to them. But he just could never get to the point where he was breaking free and, creating some extra holes and, places where he could go. So I think that having Watson within that running game or 2 players like that, I think is going to be beneficial. Obviously, the wild card within this room is if it's not Blake Watson, they also have another running back who is well deserving of the opportunity, for that opportunity specifically, and that's Tyler Beatty. They can call up Tyler Beatty, they can elevate Beatty, and they can give him the touches that he needs, because it certainly seems like every time he touches the ball, he always makes everything happen when he touches the football. But I'm excited about the opportunity for Watson more.
Who do you think is going to benefit the most from the Audric Estime being placed on IR situation?
I think it'd probably be Blake Watson, actually, if that's depending on if they use him. Because it's not going to change much with Javante. I don't think. Aside from the fact that maybe
Mhm.
the obvious, like giving him more carries, you know what I mean. But I think that it'll depend on how they view Jaleel and Blake Watson. If Blake Watson starts getting a little bit more run than Jaleel, then there's your answer.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's Blake Watson is going to get more work because of the Audric Estime injury. I mean, he's taller and bigger. He's just a bigger back than Jaleel is. Is he Audric Estime size? No, but I do think it is going to be more Watson, and I hope we're going to use him more in the passing game. Almost similar to kind of how you saw the Seahawks utilize Zach Charbonnet a little bit, especially on that like wheel route when he got the touchdown. That was just kind of like super broken coverage, but hopefully like use it more in the passing game there. Although speaking of running backs, and sadly speaking of the Seahawks, one thing that I did kind of want to bring up is like as much as the defense looked amazing out of the gate, and specifically the pass rush, which like Jonathan Cooper gonna get the bag. I'm just calling it out. I think someone actually asked that in the chat, but I definitely think Cooper versus Browning. I think they're both going to get paid. I don't know which one we're going to pay, but I think they're both going to get paid. So that was cool to see. I think us having 6 straight 3-and-outs wore them down a lot, and they got really tired, didn't want to stay on the field for that long, but that was nice. The one thing, though, that concerned me was specifically in the running game. I know that was like something we really struggled with last year and then got cleaned up. In the preseason, at least, we looked much better there with some of the guys we brought in, specifically like Malcolm Roach on the defensive line. Again, I think it's maybe early, and it might, again, just be because they were gassed, but it did kind of feel like the Seahawks could do whatever they wanted with Kenneth Walker. Dude just like ran all over us, had that breakaway 30-yard touchdown run. So that was a bit concerning for me on the defensive side of the ball. So like we didn't run the ball well, we didn't stop the run well, and I think you have to do both of those things better moving forward to help Bo and make things more like less one-sided, I guess.
Well, and continuing the theme of the defensive side of the ball. By the way, real briefly, Joe chimes in about Watson. You know, he's taller, bigger, and obviously might be what the offense needs pretty badly. It's something that you and I mentioned. Like he's a converted running back, converted running back from wide receiver.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like he has that in his game, and so I think that again that's something that's going to be worth monitoring with probably how they want to use him, because it's something that you and I even mentioned before the season, and anybody that has listened to Manely Broncos or probably even other shows that have mentioned this, he's probably the guy that compares more favorably to Alvin Kamara. With how they probably would want to use him. So
he's definitely the Alvin Kamara back in this backfield, in this running back room.
Yeah. But going forward with the defensive side of the ball, I'm not going to hate on the defense too much. Like I'm not.
No.
Yeah. Because to your point, like the only thing that was really just unfortunate was they were gassed. And because they were gassed, they were really put in really, disadvantageous situations. The 9 3-and-outs, as Broncos and VA mentions, like, I mean, it would put them in really unfortunate, situations to where they could not, keep up with Seattle at the very end. And then it didn't help matters that right at that moment in time where the Broncos defense was starting to wear down, the Seattle offense was starting to kick things back up. It just was really unfortunate. I will say this, though. The secondary I thought was really, really good, actually. I was really encouraged by the secondary. Riley Moss actually had a really good game. I also thought that the cornerback room in general was really good. The safety room I thought was pretty impressive. Obviously, the run defensive line, I thought was superior, probably the best takeaway from the game. I think that if I'm if I'm going to be nitpicking a little bit and maybe looking at it just truly as far as like with the defense as a whole, I thought that Alex Singleton was a bit disappointing. I thought that his game, yeah, he had the interception, but he was just in the right place at the right time to pick that ball off. And the reason why he picked that ball off was because, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito were in his face, in Geno Smith's face. And, it was a really errant throw right to Alex Singleton.
Yeah.
So it was just I just thought it was a really rough game for him. So I think that for going forward, hopefully, things can be a little bit better there. But also, unfortunately, Singleton in coverage is not his forte. You know what I mean? Singleton in coverage is not his forte. And it was unfortunate that schematically they had Singleton in coverage on that wheel route to Charbonnet.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked lost. He looked super lost.
I don't know if it was a miscommunication. It looked like a miscommunication. It was like a super blown coverage, or he just didn't know what he was doing.
But even on the aerial look of it, it looked like it was supposed to be Singleton, and he was. It was like, yeah, he was just nowhere to be found.
Yeah, definitely not amazing.
So let's go backwards now. Actually, so Broncos NBA thoughts about Cody Barton. Thought he was better. I actually thought he was better than Singleton. I thought his run fits were a little bit better than Singleton. So I overall for week one, I wasn't all that disappointed with his performance.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I mean, I do think, I don't know what the answer is in linebacking room there, but something needs to change or improve or get coached up, but that's going to be, that can't stay the way.
God bless you.
Excuse me. That cannot stay the way that we played against Seattle if we want to have any kind of hope of improving. So definitely something that is worth keeping an eye on for sure. I do think Cody Barton was also better than Alex Singleton. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know who they're going to
Bailey
elevate.
Yeah,
there, but I do think something needs to be improved.
So let's go backwards. Now go backwards in the sense of like, let's talk about some of those positives, and let's lead it off with and go back to Jay's question, which was, Cooper versus Browning. I thought that overall the defensive line was a big positive from the pass rush to the defensive line. I thought it was a big positive in that in that game. And I thought that Jonathan Cooper had maybe the best pass rush game overall on the weekend. I mean, he was statistically, even on ESPN, he was statistically tallied at like the best pass rush win rate out of anybody in the National Football League.
He was the best pass rusher this entire week, in my opinion.
And that's that. We're not saying that from the Broncos side of things
in the NFL.
Like, we're saying the NFL. Like he was, statistically he was a monster. And the thing is, like, Baron Browning was fantastic. I think he had the unfortunate offside penalty, where he was trying to jump the snap count. But the defensive line, I mean, and I think one of the other big takeaways was the special teams resulting in the defensive line feasting on opportunities. So you had Riley Dixon, pin them at the 2 or the 1 yard line and really, create opportunities where they could get 2 safeties, it was the first time I think the Broncos got 2 safeties in a game since 1982. And then it was the first game in the NFL that teams had 2 safeties since 2011. But it was a very impressive performance. And I understand why maybe fans would feel like BJ backed off. I think it just had more to do with the defense in general just being completely gassed. And just because of that, it just the wheels fell off the wagon.
It did feel like the pass rush just disintegrated, but I do think that was again due to them being on the field too much. Like, 9 3-and-outs in general, but 6 in a row is just brutal.
And Allen was amazing. Like, don't read into what Pro Football Focus.
You mean the worst defender on the team according to Pro Football Focus? That's Zach Allen?
Yeah, he was
ridiculous.
He was crazy good in that Seattle game. I think that Allen was great. John Franklin Myers was good. We even saw some Jordan Jackson rotation in the Seattle, into the Seattle game. So they were not afraid to go deep with that defensive line, and I thought that was really nice to see, and they still were able to show out and play, really, really hard. So I thought that defensively and the defensive front was really nice to see. So, so I think that, that was certainly maybe the biggest positive. And then you go forward and, I thought that the secondary, I thought the secondary, just the cornerback room was pretty good. I mean, Pat Surtain, you're repping him. He was Pat Surtain. I mean, he was Pat Surtain. I mean, he locked down.
DK Metcalf was borderline invisible.
He was locked. I mean, he was locked down. And I think that for the other secondary, Riley Moss, I thought was pretty impressive. For a first game, and I mean, he was going into, I'd say, maybe familiar territory. So yeah, I just think that you, for a rookie, if you will, even though that was his first game action, but it's his second season, I thought that he was pretty impressive. Playing the way that he did. So, and I also thought Brandon Jones actually played really well.
I'm glad he's finally healthy.
For not seeing him the entire preseason, I thought that he was great.
Yeah, he definitely made me less concerned about the safety position in general on this team, because that was a big issue for me going into this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, I'm not going to be doing what, probably some of the people might be doing, just for the sake of being reactionary, and that's, hitting the panic button. I'm not doing that.
One thing I will hit the panic button on slightly, just on week 1, that should improve, is Marvin Mims only having 12 snaps on offense. Like, what is that?
So I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, Brandon, but and it's actually one of the reasons why I've been keeping the Blake Watson thing kind of, tucked in, and obviously the Estime thing kind of expedited that in terms of him possibly getting more playing time. But the team needs juice offensively. And I tweeted that obviously Marvin Mims needs, more run. But I'm seeing a lot of fans clamoring for not just Marvin Mims to get more run, but that they need to activate Troy Franklin on game days and have him play a little bit more. What's your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't hate it. I mean, if the wide receiver room looks as bad as they did against the Seahawks, if they looked that bad against the Steelers, like, yeah, definitely. I think put more juice in there, like just get someone more reps. I think they specifically need to focus on giving Marvin more reps initially here. we'll see. I think it depends on the other thing that's like weird is Sean Payton specifically saying like the Mims snap count is going to be week to week. I don't really understand that, especially going into the offseason and during the offseason, them saying like, oh, they're going to utilize him more and feature him more. It just seems interesting to me that wasn't really as much of the game plan. Even if you're not going to throw the ball at him, just put him in the lineup so that he can like add some speed to this offense and make it less one dimensional. Like even if you're not going to target him at all, he's going to hopefully make it more like he's going to make it easier to throw to underneath routes because of his speed. Yeah. Just use him as on a clear out route. That's all you have to do. Like don't even throw the ball at him. But I mean, also do that. But if you don't want to do that, just use him for clear out routes. Like I don't understand.
Well, and I just think that, you know, it really kind of, you know, maybe makes you wonder, like, is there something more to this? You know what I mean? Is there something, again, I'm not trying to create a narrative, but it just, if he's not getting some run, is there more behind the scenes that we don't know about, you know, with the whole Marvin Mims situation? So, but still, like, he needs to be used more in this, you know, in this offense. Obviously, Sean drafted him, you know, so he clearly sees some sort of vision in place with him, right?
He was our highest draft pick too.
Right. And so he at least sees some vision with him.
Year.
But the unfortunate thing is, like, if he's not willing to take that extra step, that extra growth, to up his game and get on the field a little bit more and play 12% of the snaps, that's an issue. And, but I think that they very much need, you know, I think that, you know, and I don't even know if I want to say he's hurt or anything, because, like, obviously, I will say this: if he's hurt specifically going into week one, you know, that's a problem. You know, for only playing 12% of the snaps and getting hurt, that's I don't know how to feel about that. But I just think that, like, they very obviously need juice within that wide receiver position. And this is one more time again. Like, it's one more time again where they badly need a wide receiver one in that room. And Marvin, at least from everything based on touches and possible opportunities that were within that room, he may not have been a wide receiver one, but the amount of touches that he was going to be given with what it looked like this year in 2024 had the opportunity to be possibly that wide receiver one because of that reason. And, but I think with Troy Franklin, I think that, to go to Troy real quick, what makes me curious about Troy is there will come a point in time where they will not redshirt Troy Franklin if this offense, specifically at the wide receiver position, continues to look like this in the season, because they're going to need some of that juice, some of that pizzazz, if you will, and speed with that room, that I think that, you know, and specifically for Bo, Franklin and Bo already have that chemistry. So let's maybe see some of that. Maybe not right now, but come mid-season, if this thing is not humming right the way that it needs to be, maybe we need to start incorporating Troy Franklin a little bit more. But also, too, and you can chime in after this, Brandon, but I think that for Franklin, he's also got to get out of his own head, which has been some of the stuff that's been talked about in the offseason, which is, you know, route running's been an issue, the drops have been an issue. If he's well past that, then you may want to, consider playing. I will say this too, even to Marvin, if Franklin's playing a little bit more than Marvin Mims, then we've also entered some big danger zone territory.
I think if Troy Franklin's playing more snaps than Marvin Mims, what is going on? But I do think Troy Franklin is someone that is a worthy candidate to look at for, like, making him more involved in the offense. But I do think with, like, him being a rookie and how much he struggled in the offseason, in camp, and the preseason, like, I think it makes sense to bring him along slower. I think he'd use an excuse to bring him along slower. I think you definitely can still use him more and do it next game even. But I do think you absolutely have to have something in this room added to this room here. Like if it's Mims, if it's Franklin, if it's both, like put both in there. What are you going to do? You're going to make it worse? I don't know about that.
Just ask the Chiefs. They had Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman for
just put him in there. Use him the way that you used that they used Xavier Worthy. Just use him on a run. He's fast. You didn't have to throw the ball to him if you're worried about him catching it or routes. Just hand him the ball and let him run.
The Detroit Lions had Khalif Raymond.
Put him on a slant.
The Detroit Lions had Khalif Raymond, Broncos legend Khalif Raymond, and Jamison Williams. So I mean, like So it can be done. It can absolutely be done. And I think Detroit.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think the Franklin thing is undoubtedly something that's going to be worth monitoring as this season progresses. And also, too, to tie a bow back into the position we're talking about, if the team needs more juice, that also rolls into the Blake Watson conversation because, he's fast. I mean, and to Joe's point that he mentioned into the chat, he's taller, he's bigger, than Jaleel. He kind of fits the mold of, wide receiver / running back, maybe. And that's something that you and I even mentioned too, as we were breaking down the 53-man roster, right? Which was maybe that's one of the reasons why they wanted to carry only 5 wide receivers, knowing the fact that Blake Watson was already there and that they could at least have that opportunity to put him in situations like that. So, and clearly when you heard Sean Payton talk about Blake Watson, they certainly did not want to put him on the waiver wire because they apparently were hearing some stuff that teams were really in dire need to really pick Blake Watson up on waivers. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I do think one of the just kind of final thing here, put one of these guys in the Sean Payton staple of slant slave. I guess maybe slave is not the best term to use here, but just you put him in the Michael Thomas. That's probably a better way to describe it. Put him in the Michael Thomas role. Put him on a slant. Just put him on a slant. Like if he gets open, get the ball to him in stride. It's a good pass for Bo. He can get into rhythm better. You can get some actual yak and utilize these guys in space more with the speed that we desperately need on this offense. Like Devon Bailey and Courtland Sutton. Devon Bailey is amazing for Bo so far, and that chemistry that they're building, but they're the same kind of wide receiver. You have to have something extra in there. You have 2 guys that can do it. Literally just make them run slants. I
was going to say Josh Reynolds, right? Josh
Reynolds too. I mean, I think Courtland and Bailey to me are very similar. Josh Reynolds is also kind of in that tier as well. Yeah. But just you got to find a way to utilize both of them. Even if you're concerned about Franklin, at least try to use Mims more. I don't know. Yeah. It's weird to me.
Moving forward to the Pittsburgh Steelers game, I will say this. I will actually lead it off with this. I actually do think the Broncos come away with a victory. It's going to be close. The Broncos, I think, from the fact that they're home, and I think that the Steelers defense isn't necessarily on the same level from the defensive line side of things, maybe to Seattle, but their defense is still, no joke. I think their secondary is, maybe one of the weakest links of that defense, but if the defensive line gets home, it's going to make the secondary that much better, specifically with the rookie quarterback. So, but I just think that for the Broncos, they really have to really commit to the running game. And the other thing that I'll say too, Brandon, Justin Fields will not have the first half that he did when he was with the Bears last year. And
probably not.
I mean, he won't. I mean, there's no way he will. I mean, he was 15 of 16 or whatever it was. Like he was Tua efficient from that last week. Like it was the week after the Miami Dolphins game when Tua was efficient. It's all get out. So I think that for this, like there's no conceivable way that Justin Fields, will have that kind of level of game. And specifically, did you see his next gen stats? It was like I was looking at
not at all.
Or the next gen, chart from the game. It was literally like
the passing chart where he couldn't throw in the middle of the field. He's Russell Wilson.
He's basically Russell Wilson. So I mean, like, I think that for the Broncos, this is going to be a very physical brand of style football game. To where you're going to probably see 8 men in the box, maybe at times 9 in the box, some single high safety. They are going to dare Justin Fields to throw the football. The weapons for also the Pittsburgh Steelers leave a lot to be desired. All they really have is George Pickens. Obviously,
I think Jaylen Warren is going to be someone that we need to keep an eye on their offense. Personally, they're like kind of backup running back who probably should be their starter.
But if you're doing 8, 9 in the box, you're clearly
like as a passing weapon,
right? And maybe that's where you see a little bit more, guys like Cody Barton, in that kind of realm or something. But like specifically, when you are 8, 9 in the box, you want to focus on the, those plays for the running back that are, on the outside. But I think that, this is going to be a very physical brand of football. It's like, they're wanting to have Justin Fields, beat them through the air is what I'm trying to say. And so I think that this is going to be, there might be moments where it could be a boring game, but it's certainly, if the Pittsburgh Steelers do what they did last week, which is 6 field goals and hope to pray that they win the football game, you're not going to win many football games. Just ask Bronco fans. You're not going to win many football games when you have 6 field goals that produce, 18 points. You're not going to win many games, So I truly think that, this is going to be one of those games where I think that the offense is a little bit better. They do get the running game a little bit more. And I also think that Bo has actually a little bit of a better football game too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Justin Fields is going to look as good as he did as a passer that he like last year. I do think him as a runner is more concerning to me. So it'll be interesting to see what we do to lock that down. I'm honestly having a tough time picking who is going to win this game, to be honest. Like their defense is very tough.
It's not as Seattle tough, but I mean, yeah, no, it is definitely.
I think theoretically it's harder than like going into week 1. The Steelers had a better defense than Seattle, in my opinion. Now Seattle came in and they have just shown us that they are an amazing defense, especially compared to last year, and that they've improved considerably. But I do think at least going to week 1, Pittsburgh's defense scared me more than Seattle did. So that is interesting to me. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to make this as honest as possible. I don't know who wins. I think it could be another 23-20 game, and it could go either way, is my honest opinion. I'm interested to see Bo improve. That's the biggest thing that I want to look for. If he improves, great. I don't even care if we lose if he improves. But I do think the Steelers defense is very ferocious and difficult. TJ Watt is going to be a problem.
He's a problem.
And I don't know how we're going to block him with this offensive line. But I think if we got to figure it out.
He's I mean, the defense is definitely a problem. No, I mean, I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to say that they're not good at all. Like, no, they're definitely a really good unit. I just think that there's probably other areas, for Seattle that kind of give them the nod a little bit, over them, and that's really kind of the secondary. So I think that you might have some opportunity where, we can maybe move the ball up down the field. But The game is definitely going to be won and lost in the trenches, though. The game is going to have to be won and lost in the trenches. And if you are going to be looking specifically, with what should I say, the TJ Watt situation, if Garrett Bowles is able to play, it's going to be worth monitoring. But if Garrett Bowles is able to play, that's going to be your matchup. And even if Garrett Bowles doesn't play, you're going to be looking at Matt Parrott and TJ Watt as your matchup of the game. And
Matt Parrott was not good.
yeah, and he really wasn't all that great. And the other thing is, are we gonna are we gonna are we gonna line Burton up as like an extra tackle? Which is basically just as an extra, man protection, if you will, or blocker, if you will, like an extra tackle. Facing some of these types of situations where you have, an extra blocker like Burton. And I think that specifically last year, there were moments where you saw, even with Rush, you saw situations where Burton was the guy out there, not, what is it, Javante or, some other things. So I actually, so to see Jack chime in, I actually thought McGlinchey was pretty good last week. I mean,
he was definitely better than
anybody on that line,
almost everyone else.
So, yeah, but I also think that a lot of that also stems from last year, maybe from, but again, like Mike McGlinchey, he finished the season better than I think people gave him credit for, and also I think it stems from a lot of the hate that he got, once you sign with the Broncos and, and fans already, mentioning about his pass protection, that sort of thing. And then so, but no, I think it's going to be, it's undoubtedly going to be a very physical brand, of football on Sunday. If you guys are going to the game, get there early. It's certainly going to be fun. And obviously my question is going to end up being, Russell Wilson won't play, but, and if he's inactive, will he still be in uniform on the sideline?
I'm just glad we don't have to deal with that anymore.
So, all right. So my other question for you, Brandon, as we kind of step aside from the NFL side of things, was there? Let's preface it this way. We're people in the chat, we are actually going to be doing something a little bit differently this year. So we are going to be talking about who was a college player that stood out to us, from the weekend or the last couple of weeks, considering this is the first time we're doing this. Is there a player that has kind of stood out to us, in the last couple of weeks?
You can go first.
Maybe not necessarily a draft prospect, meaning he's coming out in 2020, 5, but I'm going to say Dylan Stewart. Obviously, Matty's going to be joining us again next week, so it's certainly appropriate we talk about Dylan Stewart. But if you guys have, obviously I said Dylan, so people thought I was going to be going with the, going with another Dylan. No, but I went with another one.
I'm shocked.
Dylan Stewart. If you guys have not seen him play, holy crap. He's a true freshman for South Carolina. The dude he's got the dip and bend, and obviously like he's a freshman. I mean, he's like 19 years old, so like he's already wiry anyway. But like I think Matty said it himself, like he might actually be the new Clowney. But like he is freaky. He is freaky. Strez chimes in and says Jeremiah Smith, the very prized wide receiver, 5-star wide receiver that committed to Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State wide receiver. Doesn't nothing else needs to be said. Bronco and VA says Bryant Wesco. So
it was interesting to see. I feel like sort of cheating picking Georgia, but brother of NFL running back Trevor Etienne, making his debut for Georgia because he was suspended for the first game of the season. Bro, that man is ridiculous. He had, I think, 78 yards on 5 carries.
Yeah.
Is that real?
Yeah.
He's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Something in the ETN blood.
And I like how Strez mentions this game. If you have not got a chance to see that game, that was a fun game. There was the Oregon and Boise State game. That Ashton Genty kid from Boise.
Mm-hmm.
Look, a lot of people were wanting to crown Ollie Gordon as running back 1. And I think that, there's probably still a fair amount of, pro scouts that might still have Ollie Gordon as running back 1. After week 2, we might see some changes, across the board there as far as, maybe who's, going to end up being running back 1. He has been so impressive in the early going. I mean, like you can tell he's already got the balance. He's a big physical runner. He's got vision. Like he's basically got it all. I mean, like he is a very workhorse, type of back. So, and obviously we would be remiss if we didn't, talk about the other big game of the weekend. And yes, it is that game. Nebraska handily beat Colorado. Full disclosure, I did not expect it. Brandon will tell you, I did not expect it. I actually thought it was going to be a pretty close game. I was shocked. I think that, in the very first play of the game on the kickoff where I believe it was Webster dropped the kickoff, and then you have Webster again drop a screen pass. Those were 2 instances where my eyebrows were raised a little bit. That they were a bit afraid, or not afraid, but they were nervous going into Memorial Stadium that day, and Nebraska punched them in the mouth. And I think that a lot of people, if we're going to be talking about some draft prospects that kind of caught our eye, I think a lot of people on that Nebraska defensive line probably caught a lot of draft experts by surprise.
Yeah, that was an insane game. I was at a work party when that was going on, and there was on
you texted me
a huge TV in like the main building of the party. So I wasn't watching it the whole time, but every once in a while I'd go back in and see what was going on. And I texted Cam, who never replied, by the way, at one point. I was like 28-0.
Yeah.
What is this? Yeah, that was a great game. The one thing I will say, Raiola.
Yeah, Dylan
Raiola. Correctly. Definitely look good. The whole Patrick Mahomes impression thing to me is a bit much. Like, just be yourself, man. Like, come on. But I do think that he was impressive, and great game by them.
And when I'm talking about the defensive line, obviously Nash Huntmaker, Ty Robinson. For anybody that doesn't know, Nash Huntmaker also wrestles collegiately at the University of Nebraska. And he is nicknamed the Polar Bear. And then you have Ty Robinson. He was out for the first half of the CU game last year, and he played like a man possessed. And for any Bronco fans that obviously are in here, and maybe not Husker fans that don't know this, but Terrence Knighton, Mr. Pot Roast, is Nebraska's defensive line coach. I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he is.
That's insane. That's pretty cool.
So he is the Cornhuskers defensive line coach.
Yeah, CU's offensive line is disgustingly horrible.
So CU's got a problem. I don't want to dive too much into it because obviously I don't know a lot about it, but I mean, it's just like they have a problem right now. Like they have an identity crisis going on.
They have a lot of problems, in my opinion, but that's one of them.
You know who's not got any problems? Travis Hunter.
No, Travis Hunter continues to be a freak of nature.
Question for you. What would you do? Like, put yourself in Travis Hunter's shoes. And people that are in the chat, too, feel free to chime on this. But if you're Travis Hunter, and I think you and I had this conversation even last year, but, like, you're coming out, in 2025, which is going to happen. Like, he's going to be in the NFL in 2025, for a football team. Wide receiver, cornerback for Travis Hunter.
I don't know. I literally don't know. It's wild to me that he continues to play both sides of the ball because that's obviously just completely impossible in the NFL. Like, that's just not going to continue to happen. You're saying if I was Travis Hunter, which one do I pick?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't know. I probably would say corner, but I think wherever I feel like my ceiling is highest and my strength is where my strength lies. The reason I'm less sure is just based on the contracts we've been seeing for both wide receivers and cornerbacks. Like, you're going to get paid either way. I would maybe pick corner because I think you can have a longer career there and you can transition to safety pretty easily and you're not really going to have to get completely beat up. I would probably say corner, but I don't know. The sky's the limit. Could be both.
Let's just
is wide receiver higher paid? Let me double check this.
It's not much. It's not by much. I mean, like, because obviously Pat Surtain got paid 24.1.
Well, Jalen Ramsey 24.2. Who is the most recently highest paid wide receiver? Is a CD?
Justin Jefferson, I thought.
I thought CD beat Justin Jefferson.
I don't think. But I mean, still, like, we're almost at the point where it's like 30, right? 30 or almost 30, almost 40 million a year.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's Jefferson still, but
I'm pretty sure. Let me double check this.
But I think that there will be some situations and some teams that might still view him as a two-way player. But I think that, but I think that the way
wide receiver actually makes more. Oh, I was wrong.
Yeah,
damn.
I think it's going to end up being. So I don't know. For me, I think there will be some teams that might consider him as a two-way. The thing there, though, is you'll have to. You will probably have to do some load management for that to happen.
Absolutely.
For him to be a two-way player. So there's certainly ways that it could be done. Well, think about it this way. I mean, obviously, consider the player. But, like, do you remember the player that you were really high on coming out, like, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, Marcus Jones, who got drafted by the New England Patriots?
Yeah.
Marcus Jones was a two-way player. Like, Marcus Jones was a guy who was on the offense. He was on the defense. I think he even got some special teams run. So, I mean, like, he was a two-way player. Travis Hunter is, way above that in terms of being a two-way player. So I think that, it can certainly be done, but yeah, like the snap count has got to be watched. But I think for me, if I'm Travis Hunter, I'm going wide receiver. I think he's way more refined right now than a lot of wide receivers right now, and a fair amount of wide receivers, in the National Football League. And I also think that for a guy, in terms of, he's not like the biggest wide receiver, like the Megatrons, but like he really has tremendous body control for the type of size that he has at wide receiver, and you rarely see that. And so it's really impressive for what he has with wide receiver. So I think for me it would be wide receiver, but I would not. I mean, there's 32 teams, right? I would not be the least bit surprised if there is a football team, that is out there that could possibly swoo him and being a two-way player for them. And then at that point, you're talking.
It definitely could. Yeah, happen.
Yeah.
Well, who would you pick? Would you pick corner or would you pick wide receiver? Because I mean, definitely, like, I was wrong. My math was wrong. Wide receivers do get paid more. You still make bank as a corner. I just still think corner, you're going to have more longevity. But I mean, he could be a great wide receiver as well.
Well, but also too, like corner may have more longevity, but wide receivers also shown that it's going to be maybe the best position right out of the gate for instant success too, based on how the rookie, wide receivers have been. So, I mean, yeah. So, yeah, and that's what's kind of interesting when you kind of, and this is not trying to take a very big, stab, if you will, at the CU program with the way it's been constructed, but it's interesting that the player who is a two-way player right now in Travis Hunter carries himself the way that I think Dion wants a lot of his players to carry himself. And there's a couple players I think on the team that just aren't carrying themselves the way that I think Deion Sanders would want them to carry themselves, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm less of a CU fan, to be honest, right now, because I just think that Dion is very cocky. But it'll be interesting to see how that team plays out. That's what I'm going to say. I don't know what's going to happen. Their offensive line is...
CU plays Fort Collins, by the way. Or they play CSU. CU plays CSU this weekend.
I think CSU is going to win.
I think CU wins. But
it might be. It might be close. Their offensive line is just.
I think it's going to be a very interesting game though, because this is going to be the second game after the Blackburn situation. So I'm sure that the emotions will kind of be riding high a little bit. But I think it'll be a good game. And I'm hoping that those types of games, Rocky Mountain Showdown, these rivalry games, if they go to these big mega conferences, if they go to the big mega conferences, I think that I'm hoping they keep some of those rivalry games, because I feel like once they go to the bigger games, right, or the bigger conferences, because I think that's basically where this is all leading to, is that you'll probably have a big conference in the AC, or a big conference in the SEC, a big conference in the Big 10, a big conference in the Big 12. So I'm really hoping that, once it gets to that point, you'll see Missouri, Kansas probably rekindle the flame a little bit. You'll see, hopefully, Nebraska, CU do something, more once it gets to that point. Because to Broncos and V, they're done, apparently. They don't appear to be locking anything up. And then you have, what's some of the other ones? I think, Oklahoma and Texas is another big one.
Quentin Ewers looked pretty good.
Yeah,
Michigan did not.
Jim Harbaugh leaves, and all of a sudden...
Was it Jim Harbaugh? Was it JJ McCarthy? Or was it both?
It was both, yeah. Did you see that the news came out? This is a separate, but did you see the news that came out that apparently Sharon Moore did not even sign his contract or whatever? Like he was basically coaching for free almost on the sideline.
Yeah.
I feel like that has to be illegal, right? Like, like it's like someone just randomly, asked you, hey, would you mind coaching on the sideline for Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
We need you. Like, I don't know. It feels weird that literally a guy would be a head coach on the sideline, and then not just that, but like recruiting players, and he didn't have any pen to paper yet. It's I don't know. It's interesting.
That was, there's something else going on there, I feel like, but we'll see.
Yeah. But
he's got to be getting money somehow.
Nonetheless, I'm just happy college football is back. Me personally, I'm a big college football person in the NFL. I love college football. I love watching college football. But I also love talking about the NFL, and obviously I love talking about, the Denver Broncos, and hopefully they can become good again. But I love talking about, college football. It's been a great show, Brandon. Hopefully we can come away with a Broncos victory. And thanks to everybody that's been in the chat as well. I'm
sticking with the 23-20, and it could be either team that gets the 23, just to be honest.
What he's trying to say is he's not picking a winner. He's picking a score.
It could be either one.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Thank you guys to everybody that's been in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to the MHRT Network if you guys are new watchers of the Manly Broncos stream here on the MHRT Network. So click the like, click the subscribe over on YouTube for MHRT Network. Follow both Brandon and I on social media, Cameron Parker PO at Brandon Miller PO. Also follow the show handle at Manly Broncos. We also have a Facebook page for the MHRT Network. Make sure you go like that. Like the Facebook page of MHRT Network. Also like the Manly Broncos Facebook page. We haven't posted hardly anything on there, but make sure you like that Facebook page as well. So do that. And we'll be back next week. Brandon will not be back. Maybe not, but he might not be back next week.
I won't be available next Wednesday.
Yeah.
TBD on if we do a different day. I will be on the road.
We might be doing a different day, but nonetheless, we might be having a reunion of sorts, ladies and gentlemen. We might actually be having Mr. Matty back next week, so stay tuned to that. Anyway, it's been a great show. Thank you guys to everybody that's been in the chat. Go Broncos, and hopefully they can come away with a victory. And again, thank you to everybody that's been in the chat. You guys are the real MVPs, and we'll see you guys next week.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my life.